10 years later. Some songs are planned, others simply happen. 10 years ago, on a small stage in the city center, an improvisation became the beginning of a journey that would eventually be called Sugarcello. The night Lambada changed everything. A story from the first performance that started an unexpected decade. Back then, the weeks had their own pulse. Every weekend we'd drag our instruments into the city and disappear into the little stage that felt like its own universe. No expectations, no strategy, no grand plan. Just music and whatever happened when people got in a room together. The stage was our testing ground. Some nights ideas crashed and burned, other nights they caught fire. Lambada showed up somewhere in the middle of that. Not as a cover, not as an arrangement, more like a riff looking for release. The melody everybody knows wasn't there yet. That came later. First came the pulse, the bounce, the attitude. Even the stage got involved. The whole platform was built from wood, and every time I stamped my foot, it punched back like a giant kick drum. People were drinking, talking, laughing. The room was alive. And somewhere inside all that noise, Lambada took its first breath, not finished, not polished, just breathing. 10 years later, I don't remember every note of that set. What I remember is the feeling. The feeling that we had left just a small Lambada reimagination behind in the universe. The melody gave people something to recognize, the groove gave them somewhere to go. The riff behind the iconic melody. 4 chords, no plan. Long before there was a Lambada arrangement, there were just 4 chords. For a while, they were everywhere. I'd sit at a piano and find myself playing them again. Not because they were remarkable, quite the opposite. They were simple, they just refused to leave. Week after week, they'd show up, hang around for a few minutes and disappear again. I never did anything with them, at least not intentionally. Then one weekend, they followed me onto the stage. The room was already moving. Glasses clinking, people talking over each other, musicians squeezing past tables carrying cases and cables. The usual chaos. At some point, my hand landed on those same 4 chords. This time they stayed. The piano locked into a pattern, the groove started pushing forward, and suddenly the whole thing felt less like an idea and more like something happening in real time. The room didn't stop, no one noticed, and the night just kept moving. The audience probably forgot that night by breakfast. I didn't. The name that refused to leave. The influence before the name. At the time, I was spending a lot of hours watching the work of Japanese dancer Koharu Sugawara. What fascinated me wasn't simply her technique, it was the way she seemed to become part of the music itself. The boundaries between movement and sound started to disappear. She wasn't dancing to the music, she felt like she was inside it. There was an intensity to it, not loud, not theatrical, just completely committed. I had noticed that Koharu was involved in a project called Sugar Water. It brought live music and movement together in a way I hadn't seen before. A band, a violinist, a dancer, neither supporting the other, all speaking the same language through different forms. That idea stayed with me. Movement wasn't decorating the music, movement was part of the music. As Lambada was taking shape, I found myself returning to that world again and again. Not to copy it, just to understand why it resonated so deeply, why it felt alive. Years later, most of those early ideas changed. The music changed, the videos changed, the direction changed. But one thing stayed, the name, Sugarcello. The long shot hope. How a temporary name became the identity of an entire decade. Then, one evening, somewhere between editing videos, rendering files and trying to give the project a name, a thought appeared, what if I called the channel Sugarcello? Part of it was admiration, part of it was humor, and part of it was a long shot hope. Maybe one day Koharu would come across it, maybe she would recognize the reference. Maybe she would understand it as a small nod to an artist whose work had inspired the project. And maybe if the stars aligned, a collaboration might happen. It was a ridiculous idea, the kind of idea artists quietly keep to themselves, but I liked it, so the name stayed. The collaboration never happened, Koharu never appeared, but the name remained attached to every experiment, every video and every step that followed. What began as a small wink towards an artist I admired eventually became the identity of the entire project. The funny thing is that I always assumed the name was temporary. 10 years later, it's still here. When movement found the music. Making the video. One day, while searching for ideas for the Lambada video, I found myself back in the world of Koharu Sugawara. At the point, the track already existed. The arrangement was finished, the groove was alive. What it didn't have yet was a visual identity. I remember the black and white performance video Koharu had released. A simple space, a white background, nothing distracting, just movement, just expression and just energy. I watched it again. Then a strange thought appeared. What would happen if I muted the original audio and played Lambada instead? So I tried it. I pressed play. And for a moment I forgot I was watching two unrelated things. The movement and the music seemed to recognize each other. The accents landed in unexpected places. The energy rose and fell together. The rhythm felt connected, not perfectly, but emotionally. The kind of connection that makes you stop analyzing and simply watch. That was the moment I realized the video already existed. It was simply waiting for a different soundtrack. The best moments weren't planned. They happened in the space between the music and the movement. 10 years of signals. The years between the first idea and the project that exists today. For a long time, I thought Lambada was the destination. It turned out to be the starting line. What followed wasn't a straight road. It was 10 years of experiments, 10 years of trying things, keeping some, abandoning others, starting over and beginning again. There were classical concerts, rock arrangements, electronic detours, covers, original music, videos that worked, videos that disappeared without a trace, projects that opened doors, projects that quietly closed them. Some ideas survived, some didn't, but every attempt left something behind, a sound, a lesson, a direction, a clue. Looking back now, the path makes more sense than it did while walking it. At the time, it often felt chaotic. One step forward, two sideways, then somewhere unexpected. But every experiment was really asking the same question. What does Sugarcello actually sound like? Not the covers, not the trends, not the algorithms, the project itself. And slowly, over time, the answer began to appear. Not a single song, not a single performance, but as a collection of experiences, a language forming piece by piece. The project wasn't trying to become something new, it was trying to discover what it had been all along. Chapter 2. This August also marks 1 year since the release of Starstruck. In many ways, it feels like the natural companion of Lambada. Both pieces were built from the same instincts, the cello as the sole source of sound, minimal repeating motifs, rhythmic string-driven riffs, and a sense of optimism woven through their entire structure. If Lambada was the beginning of the search, Starstruck feels like the closing page of that chapter. There was another reason this anniversary mattered. Yorgos and I go back a long way. We studied together, lived together, spent years carrying cellos through the same doors and chasing many of the same questions. Some of those questions changed, some never did, so when it came time to play Lambada again, asking him felt less like an idea and more like the obvious thing to do. And perhaps fittingly, this anniversary also falls on the birthday of my grandpa, a classical double bassist, opera musician, and the first professional musician in our family. The tradition he began would continue through the generations that followed. It feels like a good moment to look back, say thank you, and step forward into whatever comes next. What remained? Not everything survived. Ideas disappeared, projects changed shape, some plans never left the notebook. Others made it into the world and quietly carried on without me noticing. What remained was smaller than I expected. Not a catalogue, not a strategy, not a collection of releases, just a few things that kept returning. The cello, curiosity, experimentation, the desire to build worlds rather than products, the belief that different influences could sit in the same room, classical music, metal, film, electronics, humor, noise, silence. Over time, they stopped feeling like separate interests. They started behaving like parts of the same language. A language still unfinished, still changing, still searching. The strange thing is that after 10 years, I don't feel closer to the end of the journey. I feel closer to the beginning. Only now I understand what the question actually was. Not what should this become, but what is already here. And maybe that is the real reason for looking back. Not nostalgia, not celebration, just perspective. To recognize the trail after walking it. To see the shape of something while it is still being built.